Welcome to In the Arena. I'm your host, Mindy McAlindon. Joining me today is Rob Boaz from Carroll Electric Company. Have you ever wondered why your electric prices are what they are? Or have you heard about data centers and AI and kind of wondered, what does this mean for me? Am I going to have heat in the winter? Well, Rob is going to talk to us about this today. Rob is the current president and CEO of Carroll Electric. He's spent years working for this electric cooperative in the industry here, and he has really seen the growth that's happened in Northwest Arkansas over the last decade. Carroll Electric serves tens of thousands of homes here in Northwest Arkansas, as well as in the Ozarks, and they are in the center of the conversation of what's happening in AI, what's happening with our electric grid, and we're going to learn more about it today. So join me in the arena. Well, Rob, I am so glad that you're able to join us today. I wanted to just maybe start with your background. Can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got to Carroll Electric?
Oh, I'm happy to. Well, first, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this. I love talking about what we do. But for me personally, I grew up in Harrison, Arkansas, and kind of wandered my way into the accounting industry. Was in public accounting for about 2 to 3 years. And Carroll Electric was actually a client. My wife and I wanted to move back to our hometown, and we did that. Worked for another company. And then Carroll called about a year into that endeavor and offered a better opportunity than the first one I took to come home. So it's a tremendous joy to get to live so close to our families and raise our children close to our parents. So it's just been a delight. I worked in accounting for about a year and then into management. 2003 was selected to be the CEO of Carroll Electric, and that's where I've been since.
That's wonderful. And again, forgive me, my dog is in the background, and apparently the delivery man has arrived, and the dog is very excited. And so, anyways, I apologize for the barking in the background.
No worries.
Well, it's good. And you've certainly made a large impact since you came and joined Carroll Electric. I think that you've made some pretty significant changes. But let's start with kind of what it means to be part of Carroll Electric. What is an electric cooperative? How is it different than a traditional company? Why is it different? How does it benefit people?
So really, co-ops were created to serve rural America. At the time, the investor-owned power companies didn't have an interest in serving a low-density environment. And so they kind of refused to serve it. And that was the creation of co-ops. So just having electricity, let alone whether it was affordable or reliable, was a real privilege for those people. Today, we get to deliver it in an affordable and a reliable way, and we do it without the economies of scale or the high density that the investor-owned utilities still enjoy. So it's really a great mission, and it's a story that it's difficult to tell because people don't think of their power company as really being compassionate about them.
Well, and I will say, this is a total aside, but that's one of the things I like about your newsletter that comes out is sometimes you do put snippets of stories of real people or how people are impacted. And I love that part of it. So how does being member owned, or why does being member owned matter, other than the fact that you're reaching people or a population that wasn't originally getting reached, but we've moved on into modern times. And so why does it matter to be part of a member owned organization?
Well, the mission is pure. And this is a question I got years ago when I became CEO. I have worked for a shareholder-owned company, and there's nothing wrong with a shareholder-owned company, but there was a real conflict and a rub between the shareholders and the customers because that's where the money exchanges. For us, it's the same people. Whatever we do good for the shareholders is good for the customer because it's the same resources that we're drawing from. It's the benefits are shared across the board. So it really is unique. And I will say this as well. The purity of that mission really does inspire our team, and our team really performs at a high level.
So let's talk about prices. I think that's probably when people think about energy, the first thing they think about is their electric bill, right? And
Right.
so what are the factors that are driving electricity prices right now? It's a big question, kind of a
Uh,
broad question.
well, no, it's a great question. The state of the industry is it's in a critical state right now. And one of the things our newsletter points to, and we've been writing this newsletter for this is the sixth issue. One of the things it points to is the bulk power system. And we we operate in these tremendously complex wholesale markets, not Carroll, but our wholesale power provider. They operate in these markets. They're about 13 years old. That's how long they've been around. And at the time, there was plenty of power in those markets and prices were cheap. Well, as a result of U.S. energy policy, there's been more and more generation close. And now we're seeing an acceleration of demand, and those basic economics of supply and demand have flipped. And so you're seeing really high market prices, especially in times that supplies are short. And it's really creating a lot of volatility, and it's gaining the attention of customers nationwide. I mean, the headlines are just staggering how much of this is spilling out on the folks at the end of the line.
Well, and I will say you have done, it is challenging, I think is probably an understatement, to make sure that when we have stressful times, when we have big storms come through, ice storms, tornadoes, those kinds of things, where power lines go down and services cut off, to be sure that that's back up and running very quickly, or we don't have kind of what happened in Texas, where things froze over and we weren't able to utilize that energy. Carroll Electric has really done a pretty amazing job to make sure that power outages time is minimized. What goes into that? How does your planning go into that?
Well, today, most of the outages are on the distribution system, and that's the part that we're responsible for. There's really three things I would give credit to. Number one is our people. And, I don't want to over glorify linemen, but they really do deserve a lot of credit. And it's not just the physical abilities that it takes. They also have to have a pace that prevents anyone from getting hurt, because their jobs can be extremely dangerous. And they'll leave their families at a ball game or at home, and they'll be on site, really quick. Still follow the safety protocols, coordinate with other folks that are responding. And normally, within 59 minutes, they've got power restored and are going home safe to their families. But they have to make a lot of decisions in the field. There's a lot of knowledge that is accumulated in those linemen, and they do a remarkable job. Our vegetation management crews work side by side with them. And our team has had a multi-year focus on making sure that we keep the vegetation away from power lines. Not only is that a problem for outages, but it can be a public safety issue. And so we have got a really disciplined vegetation management program. And, that reduces outages, reduces the opportunity for critters to get on the line and cause outages as well. And then we couldn't do any of that without the cooperation of our membership. I mean, we have a wonderful membership, and I'm all the time getting feedback of how well our people perform, and we're lucky to have everybody involved.
That is great. And I do know that when I've had constituent issues and I've reached out to y'all, that it's something that's been taken care of so fast. It's been unbelievable. Y'all made me look good. So I thank you for that.
Well, you make you look good. I appreciate what you do for our members and your constituents.
Well, you're very kind. All right. So here's the moose on the table that I want to talk about, data centers. So data centers, it's in the news, AI and data centers. So we hear so much about this. We have, I don't even remember the number. I want to say it was like a dozen or so looking to come into Arkansas. And they're coming in all over the country. And the number that I heard was that if we gave data centers all the energy that they want, they would take up 99% of the available energy on the grid. That, I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I had heard. So I know it's an issue. It's going to be an issue going forward. And so how is Carroll Electric planning for that? And in the broader sense of our state, how are we planning to have that energy available without it hurting the consumer or skyrocketing prices?
Well, the news that came out last week about the pledge to not shift cost,
All right, so talk
that's
about that for a
something.
second in case our listeners didn't see that pop
Sure.
out.
Uh, yeah, and you're well informed on this issue as well. But President Trump met with the big tech companies and developers for these hyperscale projects, and they came to a pledge that they weren't going to shift cost on every other consumer. And that is a philosophy. Our power supplier, Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation, that's a philosophy we've already adopted in our tariffs. So the construction cost of that would not get pushed on other consumers. And it's very complex because really all that can be built in terms of power is natural gas. I mean, nuclear isn't going to, well, nobody's building nuclear just because of the financial risk. No one's building coal because of the policy risk. Natural gas is the only thing we can build to give dependable electricity. So at the end of the day, pledge or no pledge, and I'm not at all being critical, whether we're growing small increments on the grid or we're growing large increments on the grid, every new increment is going to push us deeper into natural gas resources. And those prices are very much indexed to supply and demand. And I'm not aware of a way to really control that piece of it. But the construction piece of it, I think we're planning for. And I think you're right. The increments of power that are needed are unlike anything our industry has seen. Utilities probably overran the amount of generation that was needed in the 70s and the 80s to catch up with air conditioning as people got air conditioning in their homes. There's no way we can outrun the demand on this. It's moving so quickly.
That is amazing. So can we talk about SMRs a little bit?
I have limited knowledge, but happy to.
So it seems to me that I mean, I'm a big fan of nuclear energy. I think that
Me
it
too.
got a bad rap. I know, well, yeah, we share this. I think, got a bad rap, right, in the 70s
Oh,
and
yeah.
80s, and I think things have changed a lot. We have a very safe nuclear one here in Arkansas. It's done great, and it produces, I don't know what percent of the energy. Do you know? I should know that number. What percent of the energy
It's energy, but I mean, it's part of the bulk grid,
yeah.
which helps sustain the grid. And we're grateful they have it.
But having small nuclear reactors, these small modular reactors rather, could be a huge shift in how we provide energy to data centers. Do you have any feel for the landscape of when we might start seeing SMRs that are, I don't know, I hate to say affordable because they're all going to be, everything's expensive, but something that we could afford as a state to bring in?
There's not been anything licensed through the Nuclear Regulatory Commission that I'm aware of. And really what we advocate for is a blueprint design that once that's approved by NERC, everyone could follow and not get hung up in years of litigation and pushback from regulators. The last two reactors were not small nuclear reactors like you're referring to, but the two in Georgia at Vogtle that came on took 17 years from shovel to turning them on. They were budgeted at $14 billion, came in at 36 or $37 billion. And for anyone to say, hey, we're going to build a nuclear plant of that scale, it'd be, in my viewpoint, irresponsible financially to put our members' money at that kind of risk. But you're exactly right. And, we do a form of small modular nuclear reactors every day. We put our 18-year-olds on ships and submarines to operate these vessels. And it's not a hidden technology. we know exactly how to do this, but we have to get those policy barriers knocked down and insulate the American consumer from the risk of trying to build one of these things.
And so would those be federal regulations then that really need to be adapted?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to be clear, there are discussions ongoing to, try to see what we can do to loosen that up. But if I'm not mistaken, that's one of the agencies that's an independent federal agency that, it's going to take some real determination to get things where they need to be. But hopefully this administration can help with that.
Yeah, I would think there would be just building pressure to make that happen. And that stigma, I think, is gone on nuclear energy. I don't think people have the fears that we had back in the day. So it seems like we could move that forward a little faster, maybe.
Yeah, it'd be a very positive step if we could move that forward.
So you mentioned your newsletter. How often do you put out your newsletter?
On the Record comes out once a year.
Okay.
And it's something I put a lot of personal time and energy on. And, I know less than the people who actually live and work in the bulk power system, but I know way more than I did 6 years ago, because my focus up until that point had really been on the distribution system. There, had always been ample power generation. The bulk system wasn't a concern, but we began to see in 2018 that natural gas was getting market dominance. And we even got a price signal that looked kind of scary in 2018. And we took a question to our membership and said, do you want us to kind of smooth some of this volatility out? And the membership, through a survey, said, yes, absolutely. And so we smoothed that fuel cost out annually so they didn't have to experience that volatility monthly. And what we felt to be very significant in 2018 was just shattered in 21 during Winter Storm Uri. And it was just like, I never imagined prices on the wholesale market could look like this. And I could speak all day on how unjust, how that scheme has developed and how unjust it is to take resources out of the market, because it really does create an opening for natural gas prices to be whatever they put out there. And I don't want to be too harsh, but it's a very unjust thing to see natural gas prices and Winter Storm Fern. It is, an 11x increase from the days leading into Fern for those few days there. And I hope we can get some market reforms.
Yeah.
The chair lady of FERC, she was an author of the progress report for this administration, and they've got the right ideas on how to put some market reforms in place. But none of that's moving its way through yet. But hopefully we can see some improvements there.
Hopefully. Yeah, that would be good. It's funny to me sometimes how slow the wheels move at the federal level, because it moves so fast at the state level, I feel like.
Right.
At the federal level.
That's
Man,
right. You only have 3 months to get it done.
I was like, come on, we can do this in a week. So let's talk about, you just put out your most recent newsletter. It had a ton of great information. So let's go over a little bit of it. What do you think the most important updates, if I didn't have a chance to read the newsletter, what are those most important updates you'd want me to know?
I think what I would want you to know is that our power supplier, Arkansas Electric, we're in the process of building new generation, and it will be fueled primarily by natural gas. And we've got some hedging, both financial and physical hedging, that we do to try to control the prices of that. And I need to clarify something here. Arkansas Electric is an affiliate. The co-ops in Arkansas collectively own our power generation co-op in Little Rock. So I sit on the board of directors there. And so I have, some inside knowledge on what's going on, but they're building a dual fuel natural gas plant. And that's really the one that we're talking about right now, but there's others to come. And
let me stop you. Tell me about a dual fuel plant.
Well, it would be backed up with essentially diesel. And on a normal day, it wouldn't be efficient to run diesel. But when the natural gas prices go 10x, then we can fuel it with diesel to moderate those natural gas prices
Again, trying
and
to keep the
have
volatility out of consumer bills.
exactly it manages both the volatility. But if we go back to Winter Storm Uri, we were actually trucking in diesel to one of our older plants. In fact, the first one we built, and we couldn't get natural gas. It was cut off, or the price was astronomical, and we were trucking in fuel. And I think that was like for the times that we could get gas, it saved us like $35 million in just a few days. So when we say dual fuel, I mean, it's primarily natural gas. It may be a combustion turbine or just a conventional steam turbine, but we can make adjustments on some of those plants to burn both fuels. So it helps both with the volatility and the price exposure, but also to make sure the resource stays online if our natural gas supply is cut off. So they're making the right decisions, and they're having to navigate a really tough regulatory landscape. I mean, you've got every federal agency that's got a say in how we do things, and they've made decisions early with vision to make sure we're not overpaying. But the supply chain for power generation is getting clogged up big time, and I think we've got some resources out there that are going to bring value back to our membership.
That is fantastic. What about the electric grid? We hear a little bit of talk about the grid itself. What's something that maybe people don't realize about how the electric grid works, or the work that utilities do every day to keep the lights on?
I think the complexity, before I came to Carroll, I was living in my hometown about 30 minutes from here. I was worried about being bored. And it's such a joke to think about that.
Yeah.
Because the complexity of this is so deep. I've not found the bottom of it, and I've not met anyone that's discovered everything there is to know. It's just really amazing. And electricity is such a finicky physics thing that has to be a certain way. And so that complexity carries all the way up to the bulk grid, and we have to maintain just like the perfect heartbeat across multiple states, or bad things happen. So you've got people at every layer monitoring things, and the chance to get bored is pretty low. But I really have a lot of respect for our team and the day in, day out work. No one would ever understand how visionary our local engineering team here is at Carroll. When they're planning our system, they're looking out 3 decades on where we might need things and trying to layer that decision in with a 5-year decision and a decision that we need to make next week. And so they're very thoughtful in trying to capitalize opportunity and deliver better value to our members.
You were right. It is so complex. I've run a couple of bills down in the legislature about electricity, and every time I think I have a handle on it, I talk to somebody, and it's like a whole nother layer of the onion came off, and I was like, I don't know anything about this part of it or that part of it, or didn't realize the interconnectivity here. And who knew when Franklin was flying his kite with a key that electricity wasn't just going to be such a simple thing to capture and to produce. But it is very complex.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that we ever discovered it. I mean, there's so many layers to it.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I will say, you have a gift of taking that complexity and making it sound really graspable. And I appreciate that. You and I have had many discussions about energy, and, I always come in and I always walk away learning something else that I didn't know. It's like, oh, I didn't realize that, or this is great. And you have an ability to make it approachable, which I really, really appreciate in your leadership. So thank you for doing that.
Well, that's very kind. Sometimes I feel like I fumble that effort, but people want to know what's going on. And it's such a challenge. I feel like, to really give them the truth of what's going on without burdening them with all this complexity.
So much.
And it takes a certain amount of respect for on the policy side to realize you just can't snap your fingers and all this, gets corrected. It took years to get here.
Yeah.
It'll take years to move from where we're at.
It will. It will. And unfortunately, things are moving at light speed these days. So I feel like we pass a policy and it's already outdated because of what's happening. But let me ask you one quick question. I'll ask you one more question, then I will let you go, because I know I always keep people long and I hate it, but I get so excited about the conversation. So if we sat down 10 years from now, what do you think would be the biggest change in how electricity is generated or delivered in our state or in our region?
Well, as I said earlier, I think the physics of electricity are very unforgiving. We're still going to have green boxes. We're still going to have power lines. We're still going to, there's not going to be a revolution like there was in telecom. But 10 years from now, when I look at what our team is doing on vegetation management, we got tons of initiatives to elevate reliability. I hope 10 years from now, we can look at how our distribution system is doing and see the fruits of everyone's hard work today, because I can tell you that people really do care and they really do get motivated in trying to serve our people. So I hope we can see some improvement there. My crystal ball on the bulk system, we'll have more natural gas, and hopefully we'll be working our way out of the current situation.
That's wonderful. Well, Rob, thank you so much for coming on today and giving us a little insight into what's happening in energy in Northwest Arkansas and with Carroll Electric. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mindy. I appreciate all you're doing.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
All right. See you.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed our conversation today with Rob Boaz from Carroll Electric. He gave us a lot of insights into just what goes into your energy bill, why it costs what it does, and what to expect in the future, what kind of energy will we be producing, and a good look at data centers and trying to figure out how data centers will be impacting us here in Arkansas. So if you enjoyed the program, I hope that you will like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you next week in the arena.